Hi, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to my weekly podcast about spirituality, love, death, devotion, and waking up while living in a messy world. The Satsang with Shambhavi podcast is recorded live each week with students of our nonprofit community, Jayakula. For more information and to find out about attending a satsang, visit jayakula.org. Thanks for listening. Much love to you, wherever and however you are. Just as we can see the light of a movie or the TV better when in a dark room, the light of the Supreme appears in the darkness of no concept, no ground. So I'll read this again. Just as we can see the light of a movie or a TV better when in a dark room, the light of the Supreme appears in the darkness of no concept, no ground. This isn't even a metaphor or an analogy. It's like just true. Light shows up better in darkness. It applies from the most gross thing to the most subtle thing. When you want to see with your inner eyes directly, and I don't mean close your eyes and see things, I mean have your eyes be open and see with your inner eye the more subtle light manifestations of people and objects and sky and nature. It always works better at night, or it works better in dusk, really. So concepts about how things are and how things should be, and the way that we make ground out of our concepts. So here's the concept. If I own a house, I'll be safe, right? I'm not even making a ground out of the house, because houses are just houses. You don't have to have concepts about them. You can live in a house without having a concept about it, right? It's just a house. So it's not the problem of the house. It's the problem of the concept about the house. Or when people are lonely because they're single and then they get into relationships. I've noticed that there can be a kind of sense of, I've won, right? I've won, and even sometimes waving that around in other people's faces in subtle ways. So there's nothing wrong with being in a relationship, but when we have the concept that now I'm on firm ground, now I'm a valuable human being, now I'm better than those other people that aren't in relationships, now I've made it, now I'm safe, then we have a concept that we're making into a ground. Anything that we say about ourselves and what we must have to be happy, how life must be in order for us to feel okay, or how we are, that's just the way I am. Right? This is the way I am, so please don't suggest another way I might be. Please don't suggest any alternatives, because I'm standing here on this ground of how I'm telling you I am. We have lots of different ground that we stand on that's really based in concept. It's not really anything to do with how the building blocks of our lives, it's the concepts that we inject into those building blocks. When we are in a tradition like this, we are asked in many, many different ways to relinquish our concepts, and therefore to relinquish our ground. And this is why I said we don't have to give up things, to be an outer renunciate and give up eating some particular food, or give up living in a house, or give up sex, or give up whatever it is that our practices tell us to give up. From the perspective of this kind of tradition, that is a very gross move that doesn't necessarily divest us of any of our concepts. I mean, we can be vegetarians and we can eschew certain pleasures in life and whatever we do, only read certain books and not others, and still have the ground that the way we're doing it is better than the way other people are doing it. We make a ground out of that kind of renunciation. This is how religions function. Okay? We become religious instead of just being people trying to wake up. These are our concepts. But when we're in a tradition that asks us to erode our concepts or is trying to pull our concepts away from us, then we are really losing our ground. It's why it's very difficult. It's very difficult. So when concepts are being eroded or pulled away or stripped away or ripped away, then we're having a difficult experience a lot of the time. Because we aren't able to derive pleasure from the feeling of certainty or ground or self-definition or identity or sense of purpose or mission that our concepts give us. And if it gets to some more extreme degree that this is happening, then that's called a dark night of the soul. Right? That's some more thoroughgoing experience of groundlessness. So we get little bits of that along the way. And sometimes it's exhilarating. Darkness represents a lot of different things, or signals. I wouldn't even say represents, signals a lot of different things. It signals shunya, it signals emptiness. The condition that we must be in order to receive what is coming toward us from primordial essence nature. Or in order to perceive that in ourselves, our concepts about ourselves and life represent a kind of filler, like pillow stuffing. And in order to really receive what is here to be received, we have to be relatively empty. And we call that experience shunya, the void. And the experience of that has a quality of darkness that can be experienced in many, many different ways. It can be a literal experience of seeing the dark in the light. It can be a dark emotional time. It can be a time when we don't know what we're doing. In the dark, you don't know where to put your foot next. It can also have a certain quality of exhilaration to it. Sort of free falling in the dark can be fun for some people. And in fact, you could even get attached to that. But it's in that relatively empty free fall condition where you don't really know what's going on and you don't have a sense of certainty anymore, because your sense of certainty was built as a house of straw. You don't have that anymore. Just got blown away. That's when you can encounter the light. And I think that the light, meaning greater understanding, a sense of re-embodiment, so that your perceptions become more subtle, more ability to read the moment and what's happening and how to move in time or out of time, as the case may be. When the light appears, you gain more skill, you gain more understanding, you gain more perceptual acuity, you gain more of a feeling of immersion in the divine, you gain all of those things. But you have to go through this darkness first. That's always been my experience. And I think the hallmark of, what I would call a good practitioner. One is just doing a practice. I mean, that's a good practitioner. But another, doing it with some degree of modesty, where you just have an understanding that you're just putting one foot in front of the other and you're going to keep doing that. And it's not up to you what the result is. But then if you really want to reap more of the rewards of a practice like this, you have to be willing to just exist in the darkness until it naturally passes. You can't fight too hard against it. You can't try to slow it down or rebuild or make it come to a conclusion prematurely, by planning something that looks progressive or forward moving. You can't apply what makes sense to you. It's not really about that. It's, if we are doing a practice and, we're still holding on to making decisions in an ordinary way, that's fine, but it's not a very mature kind of practice. Especially in these moments, which can be small or huge. They can last for a day or years. It's St. John of the Cross experienced this for years. He was the one that coined the phrase dark night of the soul. Right? So you have to be willing to just exist in a large zone of I don't know-ness. I don't know what to do nextness. I don't see what's aheadness. I'm not sure if I'm going in the right direction or notness. I've had experiences like this. St. John of the Cross describes this. Part of his experience of dark night of the soul has been feeling cut off from God. And I have had that experience very minimally. Mostly what I experience is as this sense of WTF is happening, there's more feeling of connection. Like it's a very paradoxical situation where the sort of influx of what feels like something like grace is stronger just as this complete and utter, I don't know what I'm doing thing is happening. Right. So maybe I'm lucky. I didn't have to experience what St. John of the Cross experienced too much. I've had very rare experience. Since I actually made a connection or reconnected with God, I have had very little experience of feeling disconnected in any significant way. So I guess that maybe that's to come. Maybe I'm not as mature of a practitioner as St. John of the Cross was. One of the reasons I'm bringing this up is, I'm sure you can guess, is because I feel like I'm in one of those periods right now. Having come to California with some expectations, based on some experiences I had before we got here, and also being in a position where I'm not just responsible for myself. There's all of you guys too. So I can't just, crawl off somewhere and wait till it's over. Right. One of the things I wanted to do today was thank you all really for supporting me and Jayakula while this is happening. And to say that it isn't going to get more organized anytime soon. I know that when someone is in my position, I'm not going through this alone. Everyone else is to some extent being affected by this. And if I were trying to keep everything together in a certain way, then I would be sort of trying to push this aside, right? So I could keep functioning in a relatively normal way. But because I have you guys as students, I think to a large degree, I'm just able to go through this. There's still things that are being kept together, maybe more than they should be, but I don't even know that much right now. I just feel like a big, just like, I don't know, right across my forehead. Right. So I wanted to say this. I know some of you are going through various things also. So for better or worse, we're in sync. And I just really do want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being so adaptable and continuing to support Jayakula financially, even though I'm not giving as many teachings as I normally do, for doing so much extra work, carting everything around, and just the mental work of having to continually rethink how to set things up. And, all of that is just very, very deeply appreciated. And also to say that I think it's not going to get organized in the way I would prefer for your sakes. For my sake, I don't actually care what shape it takes, as long as it's the shape that Ma wants it to take. If I could just figure that out, but right now I can't. So all she's saying now is no. And to not be aggressive and to not try to re-solidify things, not to have a new center right away or all of that. So I just continue to kind of slowly check it out. So slowly I'm doing that, and I'll report from the field as I can.